and welcome to Last Words. So today we are going to do something a little different. Let's stick with that. So, in the spirit of Halloween and me loving Halloween, I know we don't celebrate Halloween in India, blah blah blah. I love it anyways. Cool, we've established that. Now, today we'll be discussing the origin of candy corn. Yes, candy corn, one of the most controversial candies, I guess. Let's stick with that. And obviously, it's my podcast we're talking about. We're gonna have a murder, a cyanide, a Halloween candy poisoning. Just why not? Yeah, I love it. Cool. Let's start. Candy corn was invented by George Renninger. During the 1800s, he was an employee at the Wonderly Candy Company in Philadelphia. While Wonderly is credited for being the first to sell candy corn commercially, the sale and the production of the candy is attributed to Goltese Confectionery Company. The candy corn business started by the second generation of Goltese candy makers in 1898 or at the start of the 20th century. Several articles say different things. The fact that they manufactured candy corn is what kept the company afloat during the Great Depression, World War I and World War II. Now, you may not have heard of Goltese before. That's because they changed the name to Jelly Belly. Now, when do I think that they actually started manufacturing candy corn, the Goltese? When did they start manufacturing it? Well, in my opinion, it was probably during 1898 or at least during the 1900s because again, they mentioned that that's what kept them afloat during the Great Depression, World War I and World War II. So now all of this took place during the 1900s. The Great Depression ended in 1941, World War I ended in 1918 and World War II ended in 1945. So it doesn't make sense if it couldn't have possibly kept it afloat if they started making it in the 20th century. So yeah, anyways. Moving on. This is when the beautiful journey of candy corn manufacturing? That's not it. Manufacturing of candy corn started. Candy corn was actually called chicken feed. Yes, chicken feed. Totally not judging them. No, totally not. Anyways, now, it made sense back then considering the fact that then they fed corn to chicken. And people didn't eat corn like we do today because apparently it tasted really bad. Interesting. Chicken feed, the candy, not actual chicken feed, had no association with Halloween or fall. It was, however, a seasonal candy due to the tedious work of the nature. Nature of the work. What the hell is happening to me today? I don't know. Anyways, chicken feed was only available between March and November. Now, candy corn was a type of mellow cream. A mellow cream is basically made from corn syrup, sugar and marshmallow flavoring. Goltese originally called them buttercream candies. However, there was pressure to change the name in 1950s since there was no actual butter in the recipe. False advertising, my friends, and it was not tolerated back then. It's not tolerated now either. So, anyways, the recipe was simple. This recipe contained sugar, corn syrup, water and other ingredients which were put in massive kettles that could hold up to 45 pounds of the mixture. It was cooked into a slurry and once well blended, marshmallow and fondant were added to the kettles. Now this served to smooth out the texture and make the candy soft to bite. The mixture was poured into buckets called runners and workers called stringers would walk backwards while they poured the mixture into large kennel-shaped cornstarch molds. The workers passed over with the buckets 3 times, each with different colors: white, orange and yellow. A fun fact in there, just because candy corn is actually made from bottom to top. The yellow bit is the top apparently and the bottom is the white portion. So once the candy was dry, the kernels were removed from the molds and packed into wooden boxes, tubs and cartons and were shipped by wagons or trains. It was perishable, so it couldn't travel for long periods of time. The buttercream candies were sold out of barrels in bulk candy and drugstores, and the candy became so popular that other companies tried emulating them. Companies made turnips, four-leaf clovers, chestnuts, and other natural shapes. But there was nothing compared to the revolutionary tricolored candy corn. In the 1940s, candy companies began making use of family-sized clear cellophane bags. Now, this allowed the candy to be fresh while allowing consumers to see what was actually inside. Now, it was important to continue showing off the three colors, but now Gultees could actually ship them much farther than they could before. In the 1900s, the demand for the tiny treat increased so much that Gultees actually had to turn down orders. They didn't have enough production capacity to keep up with its popularity. That, of course, changed over time. So, in the 1950s, the Gultees company had 12 factories around the country making only candy corn. After World War II, the trend of trick-or-treating took off and candy corn was officially advertised as a Halloween candy. Now, why is candy corn exactly associated with autumn or Halloween? Now, this is because of the fact that corn is harvested in fall, and also the fact that back then the price was so low that it was easy for people to just hand it out. Now, even though candy corn is associated with Halloween or fall, you can actually find other kinds of candy corn like Indian corn during Thanksgiving, reindeer corn for Christmas, Cupid corn for Valentine's Day, bunny corn for Easter, and freedom corn for the 4th of July. Why do all of these sound like unicorns? Like, I'm legit imagining, like, for example, Indian corn. I'm imagining like a unicorn with like a blue horn and like orange, white, and green, and like for Cupid corn, I'm legit imagining like this with a white horn, like a heart-shaped thing. Oh my god, this is messing with my brain right now. Jeez. Okay, let's get to more spookier things, because, well, Halloween, spooky, I love that. Poison candy myth. The urban legend of people poisoning Halloween candy. Now, this started in 1970s. The 1970s. Why the hell is everything going wrong in the 1970s? I don't know. Anyways, so this was in 1928, 1970, when a New York Times editor said that there was a possibility that people were using like the tradition of trick-or-treating to poison children. Now, the editorial mentioned that there were 2 unconfirmed incidents in New York upstate and offered a series of frightening rhetorical questions. The author, Judy Klemsrud, wondered, for example, if the quote-unquote plump red apple from the kind old lady down the block may have razor blades hidden inside them. Some readers accepted her questions as definitive facts. 2 days later, a 5-year-old child died on Halloween in Detroit after consuming heroin. The article says, and I quote, Detroit, November 9th, brackets AP. 5-year-old Kevin Toston, who died Friday of narcotics overdose, apparently swallowed a capsule of heroin and not Halloween candy sprinkled with drugs. The police said today. Inspector Robert A. Slott, chief of Detroit Homicide Bureau, said that the boy had apparently swallowed the capsule while visiting an uncle's home. He said the police had no idea how the child actually obtained the capsule and that no warrants were being sought out in the case. Originally, the police said that Kevin had received the fatal dose when he had eaten a Halloween trick-or-treat candy and that it had been sprinkled with the drug. But inspector said that the quantity of heroin found in the boy's stomach during the medical analysis was the amount normally found in a capsule. In mid-November 1970, newspaper reportage showed that the child had actually found the heroin at his uncle's home, not in the bag of the Halloween candy, as investigators had been told earlier. But on October 31st, 1974, another child died in Houston. The New York Times article says, and I quote, Houston, May 28th, brackets UPI, Daneen O'Brien, her face drawn and emotionless, sat in the witness's chair, avoiding the gaze of her husband, who is charged in the Halloween candy poisoning of their 8-year-old son, Timothy. In a monotone, she described the husband's behavior, Ronald Clark O'Brien, after Timothy's death, October 31st, 1974. The child died after eating Halloween candy laced with cyanide that the state charges Mr. O'Brien prepared and gave it to his son and other children at a trick-or-treat party. Timothy died at a suburban hospital an hour after eating the candy. Mr. O'Brien is charged with capital murder and faces the electrical chair if convicted. He beat the wall and asked questions out loud. Why, an 8-year-old boy has to die, she testified yesterday. I did not see any tears, she said, and also states that she knew nothing about the two $20,000 life insurance policies taken out on their child right before Halloween. The prosecution charges us Mr. O'Brien killed Timothy and tried to kill Elizabeth to collect the $60,000 in life insurance. She said that she'd only known of the $10,000 policies on the children obtained through a bank service club and she had objected to them. I tried to discourage him, she said, but he said it was the only thing to do. We didn't have that much money. An insurance agent testified last week that Mr. O'Brien said that he had discussed with his wife purchasing the additional policies before he bought them. Mrs. O'Brien said that she first learned of the additional policies after Timothy's death. Today, May 28th, a chemical company salesman testified that Mr. O'Brien had made inquiries about buying a quantity of cyanide in late October 1974. The salesman, David Lee Jackson, said that Mr. O'Brien entered his sales area minutes before closing and asked how much it would cost to buy a small amount of potassium cyanide. He asked if we stocked potassium cyanide and I said yes, and he asked about the size and the price, Mr. Jackson said. He was most concerned about the least priced. This story of the Houston Candyman killer quickly metastasized, though it had no evidence. Newsweek magazine asserted in a 1975 article that over the past several years, several children have died and hundreds have narrowly escaped injury from razor blades, sewing needles, and shards of glass put in their goodies by adults. By the 1980s, some communities banned trick-or-treating, while hospitals in some metropolitan areas offered to X-ray Halloween candy. That is actually really cool. Anyways, parent-teachers associations encouraged fall festivities to replace Halloween, and on Long Island, a community group gave prizes to children who stayed home altogether for Halloween 1982. The same year, the governor of New Jersey signed a bill requiring a jail term for those tampering with the candy. Worries of parents and community leaders drove the fear. In a popular nationally syndicated newspaper advice column called Ask Ann Landers, Landers warned in 1983 of twisted strangers who had been putting razor blades and poison in taffy apples and other Halloween candy. However, a comprehensive 1985 study of 30 years of alleged poisoning did not find even a single confirmed incident of a child's death or even a serious injury. Sociologist Joel Best at the University of Delaware, who led the study, called it an quote-unquote urban legend. Most reports of the poisoned Halloween candy that appeared in print were editorials written by authoritative voices in politics and media rather than actual events. However, police all over the country urged parents to accompany their children while trick-or-treating. In 1982, annual Halloween festivities at the governor's mansion in Hartford, Connecticut were cancelled. Now, what do I think? Is it an urban legend? No, it's not. Is it just a coincidence? No, it's not. Or was it a serial killer who slipped through the authorities' hands? Maybe not. Do I just want to create a controversy theory? Maybe. I don't know. The thing is, I strongly believe that it was not an urban legend or just a coincidence, because that is not how it works. Genuinely, that is not how it works. I mean, that's what they did with Ted Bundy. Like, when all those girls were killed, they were like, oh yeah, it's just a coincidence that like all these girls are getting killed. They didn't like piece it together, and like, well, they did, but way later. So is it possible it was a serial killer? I mean, why not? Well, the FBI like states serial killings as this. This is the official like definition. The term serial killings means a series of 3 or more killings, not less than one of which was committed within the United States, having common characteristics such as to suggest the reasonable possibility that the crimes were committed by the same actor or actors. Maybe it was like a freaking club, you know, like that, like of like old people or like adults, as a matter of fact, that like were like, let's poison children on Halloween or something like that. You know what? I should not be recording episodes this late, but I am. Here I am recording it. Yeah, that was it. So, thanks guys for listening to me talk about candy corns and poisoning and all that. I really enjoyed it actually. The thing is, I didn't want to make like a serial killer episode because it's Halloween. I wanted it to be special, but I also wanted it to be light-hearted and fun. That's why I left all those like me like messing up words and me pausing and like etc etc. And don't forget to share this podcast, subscribe to it, rate it, and review it. And I just want to say a little thing. Thank you guys for all of those people. Like, thank you who are sticking around and are listening to me right now. I'm genuinely not saying it for the sake of saying it. It really, really, really means a huge deal to me that people are actually listening to me. I mean, I don't know. It's like not as if I've like made it and like I have like a bajillion followers and shit like that. I don't know. It just means a lot to me. So yeah, anyways, bye guys. Happy Halloween. Oh, and if you want to contact me, you can email me at lastwordspodcastbynavya@gmail.com. That is lastwordspodcastbynavya@gmail.com. And thank you so much, the people of Reddit. Really, thank you so damn much because I was so confused as to what to do. But yeah, if you want to follow me on Reddit, if you want to, I don't know, talk to me, my Reddit username is u/lastwordspodcast. So yeah, anyways, bye. Finally, happy Halloween again. And yeah, why in the world do I have this urge to add like a singing part at the end of this? What is wrong with me? God, I don't even know at this point. But yeah. Whoa, what the hell? I had to. I'm sorry. Happy Halloween! Yay! Bye, guys. Okay, genuinely, bye.